while Cynthia fires her camera up and gets up here to join us, just quickly, I mean, her tagline is Deputy Assistant Director for Cyber Division at the FBI. She's been influential in setting a lot of the wheels in motion and really working the FBI cyber beat, and really want to thank her for joining us today. But at the same time, we've had the luxury of hearing a lot about the FBI's recent cyber activities, and one of those was the Quackbot takedown. And so I've recognized that, and I'll say it with a smile, there's obviously operational sensitivity with an ongoing anything that the FBI is doing, whether it's an investigation or a specific effort. But this has made a lot of news. And so I'd like to give you the opportunity to say hello and welcome and everything else. But then if you just want to give us kind of a pitch on what the most recent efforts have really given you guys, as well as are some lessons learned that are kicking out of the butt. Is there anything new that we all should know about, even though we're all focused on how great this recent effort was?
Yeah, so in fact, it was the biggest financial and technical US government disruption of botnet infrastructure ever. And as you noted, we still aren't done. So, I think it's helpful for everyone listening in to know a little bit more about how we're structuring our cyber investigations and why we're doing what we're doing. We put a lot of thought into which investigations we're going to pursue on that larger scale, and that includes bringing in industry and other US government partners to determine exactly what is going to have the biggest impact and help prevent harm to the most victims. And because when we publicly expose or render inoperable these services or botnets or malware, we are helping many past, present, and future victims of these attacks. And with that in mind, I think a few specific things about Quackbot that everyone should know. Like, for years, industry listed Quackbot as one of its top malware variants. It was targeting thousands and thousands of victims in the US and abroad. Now, Quackbot victims ranged across industries, from financial sector to government contractors to medical device manufacturers. And victims were infected through spam emails containing malicious links, which, once clicked, allowed Quackbot to deliver malware, including ransomware, to the affected computer. And then those computers became what's known as a botnet, meaning cyber criminals are able to control the devices remotely to carry out larger scale attacks against industry and governments and businesses across the world. So it initially was conceived of as a banking Trojan, but it expanded quickly into this multi-purpose nefarious tool that was able to perform recon, move laterally across systems, exfiltrate data, and deliver other payloads, including ransomware. And I think, if you can think of a bad ransomware gang, they probably used Quackbot at one time. So I think you can see why we looked at this and said we have to do something. But it wasn't easy to do those things. It's not like Quackbot's infrastructure is distributed across the world, and it's constantly changing which infrastructure is giving commands, which one's following it, how is it all working together. This isn't just a bunch of servers we can go into a room and take offline. And so we had to really figure out how the botnet operated and the technical information that kept it alive. And well, as you said, I'm not going to tell you all our secrets, but on August 25th, with the help of some great partners, we were able to render the botnet inoperable. To do this, the FBI gained lawful access to Quackbot's infrastructure and identified 700,000 computers infected worldwide, and that included 200,000 in the US. The FBI then redirected Quackbot traffic to FBI-controlled servers, which were able to instruct the infected computers to basically remove Quackbot from those computers. We also seized close to $9 million from the cyber criminals behind the malware, money which is now going to be made available to victims. And I think this is a really great example of what the FBI Cyber Division does best. It truly targeted all aspects of the criminal enterprise, hitting the adversaries really where it hurt most. We were able to defeat the malware and delivery system, rendering it inoperable on the computers. We were able to take control of the infrastructure. We're able to target the cyber criminals' internal communications and then target their financial gains. So the synergy of all those actions is really what allowed us to kneecap QuackBot and render them completely neutralized. And it's really exciting to be a part of these operations, to see them come to fruition after years and years of efforts on our end.
Well, and that's almost the movie's rendition of how the government does cyber, and it's great to see it realized. I mean, for all of us that have lived through an adventure movie that talks about the government doing cyber actions,
Right.
you know, very rarely does it involve the cyber going in, the government going in and fixing something. So
That's right.
it's been very impressive to see, and hitting them where it hurts in the wallet is also a big step as well. Now that did take up a good bit of all of our eyeballs when it came to reading about the FBI's efforts. Is there anything else you guys have been up to that this may have overshadowed that we should know about?
You know, I think there's so many different operations that are going on every day. That included things that were made public just days later regarding Conti actors and other actors, and you know, some of our actions against them, and some of the other ways that we're partnering with our interagency partners to try to bring them to justice, including things like rewards for justice, where State Department puts out these millions of dollars reward for information that results in the capture of these criminals that we have charges against.
Excellent. Well, I mean, we just heard from Sue and others about the White House's cyber strategy implementation plan and the great work that Kimba and her team coordinated with you all and across the government to put out. This sounds like it's right in line with all of those really succinct, you know, outcomes they're looking to hit. Is that what, are we reading that correctly? Are these the type of operations that you see as at play in that whole of government approach, to where you're bringing to bear and imposing cost on adversaries?
Absolutely. I mean, first off, just this operation alone, it shows how the FBI works as a team with our partners, leveraging our unique capabilities and authorities to achieve these successful outcomes. And it wouldn't have been possible without coordination across multiple agencies, multiple field offices, and including our foreign partners. There are at least 6 other countries that helped us in this effort, to include France, Germany, Netherlands, Romania, Latvia, and the UK. But more broadly, I do think that the last few years have allowed the interagency to better understand that as a member of both the global law enforcement community and the intelligence community, we have a lot of diverse tools at our fingertips, and that allows us to pivot in multiple directions and support a broad range of partners. I think they also recognize that law enforcement operations and actions are a key instrument of disruption and deterrence. And you know, they take key actors off the table, and they also enable our partners to take additional actions like sanctions and diplomatic pressure, because we really can't hold cyber actors accountable unless we know who's responsible, and nothing says responsible like attribution. Now, we also use our law enforcement authorities as part of an all tools approach. And that's where the national cyber strategy really came in. It talked about these joint sequenced operations. For example, you may occasionally see us indict criminals that we aren't going to arrest. And we do that for a lot of reasons: to drive wedges between our adversaries, hurt their recruitment chances by taking private sector jobs off the table, limiting travel, etc., and also showing friends and foes exactly where the lines of acceptable conduct are. But those indictments are always joined with other operations, some visible, some not visible. And we create that to do a combined impact. And you know, as amazing as all those FBI tools are and US government tools are, I think it'd be remiss if I said, if I didn't really just highlight the role of our international partners as well. Know that cyber has no borders. I know it's kind of a commonly used phrase, but it's true. And we can't do this without really key partners. We have great relationships across the board. We have cyber legal attaches in 16, likely more countries coming up. But we've also been able to deploy our incident responders at least 6 times in the last year. And that's provided various either incident response or just training opportunities for our allies that help us all make things safer.
Well, and I imagine saying, hey, we'd like to clean up a couple 100,000 bad guys out of your backyard doesn't hurt in those conversations either. But the aspect, are we getting that two-way? I mean, are we getting the same kind of insights and help from our foreign partners, or are they just really in the fight with us?
We're absolutely getting that kind of help. there's a lot of great information sharing going both ways. We know a lot of the accesses our foreign partners have. They're sharing that information with us. We're sharing our information with them. And we're also making sure our operations don't harm the operations of our partners, that if one group's collecting, we're not rendering operable, and vice versa, that we're really thinking about the whole system and exactly what's going to have the best impact for global citizens who really just want to use technology as a force for good.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. Now, we haven't talked much about the private sector, but they have a great role in interacting with the FBI. Has this work led you to find them more active with you? How is your current operations engaging with the private sector improved, or are you learning some areas there as well?
It's absolutely improved over the last few years. I think that's for two reasons. The first is what you mentioned. We've been a lot more public about the fact that when we combine what we know with what our both U.S. government partners, but also our industry partners know, then we're able to put those pieces together to form that larger threat picture to then go after the adversary. Now, I think when the FBI is able to quickly engage with a company, we're also able to bring value add there. We're able to bring indicators to help network defenders identify malicious activity and intelligence about what maybe the actors have been doing elsewhere, and we're able to bring that on and say, you might see this is how you protect your network further. I think a great example of that is something that happened back in 2022 when, in the largest technical disruption of Russian cyber activities since its invasion in Ukraine, the FBI conducted a successful court-authorized operation to remove malware called Cyclops Blink from routers in the US and then working with our partners worldwide. And we did that because we partnered with the router manufacturers, the router companies, to help identify a solution, to actually work with them to say, hey, we're coming to you, we see this problem, how can we all work together? What's the pacing look like for you? What actually helps us all in this space? So like really being able to, I think, figure out and work with those industry partners. And then I think another example we've talked about is Hive, where we were able to, for 7 months, bring decryptors to victims. And that's not the only one we've been able to do that with. So that return on investment is there, I think, for industry. And they understand that when they're partnering with the FBI, we're a victim-centric organization. And whether that's a victim reaching out to us or somebody like a cybersecurity firm who wants to help victims, that's what they're getting from us, is that ability to help. And I think we've seen that grow great. Now, and I think you'll get into this in future sessions, I also think China's weighing heavy on industry's mind, though. And probably even before some of the Volt Typhoon and other different advisories that have come out over the last few months, but especially now, that industry understands, I think, better the threat China poses, and they want to partner with the US government because they know they can't go it alone. They know we need them to help protect US networks. And overarching, I think that there's a greater understanding that we're just all in this together.
And we've heard from private sector, from my time in government and now within private sector, that the deterrence plays a huge role in the confidence of our relationship with the private sector, because if they don't see the government instilling that deterrence in a public way, they just feel like the bad guys are getting away with it. So this has to be reinforcing a lot of those kind of challenges that of the past, where we just, for whatever reason, a lot of sensitivities, you couldn't tell the private sector, hey, by the way, we got you back. Don't worry, they're not a problem anymore. That's something that's really great to share. But when we now are improving these relationships with private sector and getting more and more information going two ways, is it helping shape how the Bureau looks at which campaign to elevate over another? Like, does it actually improve your kind of prioritization for these types of things?
Absolutely. The intelligence that we receive, the information we receive from industry, helps us identify exactly how and what is the biggest threat. I think I noted earlier where, we're talking about, like, when we're thinking about what we're going to throw our limited resources towards, it's towards we're not going to shy away from the hard problems, but we need to know the extent to which it's actually going to help us. And it can be as really publicly visible as Quackbot, but also privately, who's that, one affiliate that's targeting all the hospitals? Well, we don't know that unless we have that partnership with industry. And we have a lot of really great back end work with the cybersecurity firms as well. We're a part of the JCDC from DHS, and we have our own kind of bilateral partnerships as well, because in the end, cybersecurity firms are there to help security. That's what we're here to do too. And being able to partner together and then also ensure that it's not just us taking, right? But it's us partnering, it's them helping drive based on what they're providing us, and it's us working together to actually have an impact against adversaries. I mean, there's nothing better.
I couldn't agree more. So we'll see if there's anyone that has any questions. And so I have one that I'll use while you're thinking of one. You mentioned China, and we see a lot of activity out of other adversaries when it comes to things like malware and strictly like the ransomware type activities out of Russia and Russia adjacent type criminal gangs. For China, is there something different that private sector should start focusing on, or is it really, you know, the doing the hard things right the first time and bolstering our defense is still the message that we have?
So that's absolutely the message that we have, especially for the broad-based targeting that we see. Doing the basics, ensuring that you're patching regularly, that you're have strong passwords, that you have multi-factor authentication continues to be the message we send. However, I think just like you wouldn't expect physical security guards to keep out the Chinese military if it was outside the doorstep, you know, that we also need to make sure that that industry knows they can partner with us, come to us if they see the Chinese or another nefarious actor coming onto their system, because if an actor wants to put all of their weight behind an operation, they need us just as much as we need them. So I think there's the basics, like don't make yourself an easy target. You know, make yourself a really hard target. And then if you still see something suspicious, that's the world we all want to live in, because that means they'd had to spend millions of dollars and thousands of man hours to be able to actually do that operation. And then that means exposing them or doing our operations has a bigger impact. So if we get all those baselines good, it makes our countering options, and I mean by our, I mean the US government's countering options, that much more effective.
And we have a question that's come in from Jeff Selden, was kind of along those lines. How do you see the relationship between some of those cyber criminal gangs and nation states evolving? A lot of the challenges is it gets a little blurry, and what control can our adversaries extend over those cyber criminals in their kind of home state? It's almost like the challenge of having safe harbor.
And we haven't been shy about calling out both the Chinese and the Russian about creating permissive operating environments within their countries to allow for cyber criminal activity to continue. I think what's hard about that question is there's not a bright line where cyber criminal activity ends and nation state activity begins. We have nation state actors who are moonlighting in their free time to also make money on the side. We have nation states who are contracting with these cyber criminal groups. And then we have like cyber criminal groups who might just be passing information on the side to nation state actors. And all of that is kind of a morass of, is, you know, what is the question we're actually asking? Is the question we're asking, is there some kind of relationship there? Yeah, probably. You know, you can't say that across all criminal organizations and all nation states that, you know, that exchange is happening. But is it directed? Is it tasked? We don't really know that as much. But is that important? What's important is we need to ensure that there's cyber norms across the world that say you can't target a hospital, you can't target schools, you can't target and attack in peacetime these critical infrastructure entities, and it doesn't matter who you are, it's not acceptable.
Well, and it's great to hear, because it means that we're not, as a government, hemming and hawing over the exact authority that's used. We have a playbook, and depending on the adversary, have actions to take, and that's great. So we have a follow-up question from Kimberly Madden. How are you dealing with the threat of cyber-propelled disinformation during this time? So we do have a disinformation from China conversation later, but how does your office deal with disinformation, especially in the cyber context?
So within the cyber context, and I'm going to probably parse this a little more carefully, our role as FBI Cyber Division is to monitor nefarious cyber actors who are seeking to conduct these network intrusions. Some of there is perfect overlap. Look at Iran before the 2020 election, where those were cyber actors who used cyber operations to then facilitate their cyber influence operations. That's exactly where Cyber Division is, looking at especially these areas where there might be hacks going on behind the scenes to fuel it, and trying to stop that. And we're also incredibly close partners with the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force, who handles a little more directly what you're talking about. And the Foreign Influence Task Force primary mission is to identify covert foreign malign influence and identify it from an actor perspective, to know, hey, this is a Chinese government or Russian government actor behind these messages, so that we can do it from an actor perspective to identify and tell the public who's behind some of these, because we know the American public doesn't want to retreat Iran.
Yeah, sourcing matters. So we've run up against time, but I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to close out. Any closing comments for everyone?
I think that it's a plea, like I always have, right? Call us if you see something suspicious, partner with us. We want to be there. We want to support you, and we just want to make a difference, I think, just like all your listeners do.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Cynthia, for having us today and being with us for that voice. We appreciate it.
Thank you.